What about it, YouTube? Okay, I was watching Doug TenNapel today. I like Doug. But he was telling his crowd that there's no free lunch and their grandkids are going to be stuck with today's irresponsible government spending. So, with that said, I have a question. Just kindly walk through this with me, if you will, Doug. Doug, if someone from the time you could remember told you that you have endless, limitless credit, and that anything that you should need until you no longer exist, as long as you exist, that will always be available to you, that limitless credit. All you have to do is ask, and it will be provided. There's no strings attached, other than there will be variable interest rates involved, and depending on the interest on your spending from the year previous, we're going to ask you for that, but that only. Okay? So whatever you spent the year before, that there'll be a amount of interest involved. That's all you've got to pay us back. Don't worry about anything else. Just the interest. Okay? Pretty good deal, right? Pretty good deal. You can spend all you want, and all you've got to pay back is the interest. Does that make sense? You with me so far? Okay, so let's say after whatever given period of time, 10, 20, 30, 50, doesn't matter, years, you decide to add up. Or let's just say that there's a ledger kept. And so there's a ledger kept, and it's called your personal debt clock. And you can even go on the web and watch your personal debt clock as you spend money. Wouldn't that be something? Imagine that ledger was whatever after a given amount of time. Let's say after 50 years of you buying things, spending money, okay, with your credit, and paying back the interest. Let's say that number is $2 million. $2 million. Let's just say that. I'm just trying to think of what someone might spend in maybe 50 years in their life. Might be more. But for this example, let's just say it's $2 million. You look back, it says $2 million. Now, would it make any sense for you or anyone around you to say, Doug's grandkids are going to have to pay that money back? What a shame. What a shame that Doug went out and spent all that $2 million because there's no free lunch and his poor grandkids. Would that make any sense, Doug? No, it wouldn't make any sense, would it? Because that is merely a ledger. It's merely an accounting of how much you've spent. Nobody cares about it. It's in the past. So if you have a country, the United States, that spent $30 trillion in 107, 8 years since 1913, so what? So what? It means nothing, Doug. The only thing that anyone should be talking about, because it is the only thing that is worth criticizing with our economy, by the way. Our economy is wonderful, how it's able to react to demand for credit in real time, and that nobody has to have a price-fixed commodity that's a ball and chain that they're just going to manipulate anyway with fractional reserve lending. It's been done before. It's been a disaster before. We have a wonderful system. Only the interest, Doug, is what anyone should be complaining about. Because the interest is also known as usury in the Bible. It's decried. It's horrible. It's the idea that two quarters can get together and copulate and make a dime. And guess who gets that dime? It's somebody across the pond wearing a small hat. Probably. And he didn't do anything for it. He didn't work a paper route and gain a bunch of capital as a kid, and then, now you're taken from his coffers and you have to give it back at some point. That is not how it works. The usury is a scam. Trump knows this, knew this. He was borrowing at zero interest. Do you realize what that means under the terms that we discussed earlier, Doug? If your terms were that you could borrow whatever you want throughout your life due to your credit, your endless credit, and that all you would be responsible for is to pay the interest, and the interest was zero, Doug, what does that mean you owe? Would that in effect mean that there was no more usury in your economy if you're borrowing at zero interest? What was Trump doing? He was borrowing at zero interest. The stimulus checks, when people the grocery stores have food, Doug. People have needs, Doug, and there's people out there who can meet those needs, and it all kind of helps everybody make their mortgage payment when things can happen. When the money supply is cut off for whatever reason, doesn't matter what the reason might be, if it's COVID-19, then why would anyone complain about getting money out there, continuing to be able to circulate, continuing to be able to be passed along? The guy at the grocery store can go feed his family now. The guy at the warehouse selling the stuff that fills the grocery store, he can feed his family now. The guy that drives the truck that brings the stuff to the grocery store, he can feed his family now. The manufacturer, the stuff that you bought at the grocery store that you're eating, he can feed his family now. And you're going home to feed your family now. What is wrong with that, Doug? Because when you start to take away the money from the supply and you start to make it so that people cannot exchange and get the things they need, Doug, what's going to happen? Besides a depression, besides price inflation, besides everything that you Chicken Littles think works in the opposite way. You Chicken Littles will bring about, you by criticizing the wrong aspects of our economy, you will bring about the very disaster that you warn about, like Ron Paul. Only by losing faith in money could there be a problem with it. It used to be said 10 years ago, you still hear it once in a while, worthless fiat. If it's so worthless, why does it buy everything I need? If there's no free lunch, Doug, why isn't Congress starving to death? How come our military can go to the grocery store when they need to? If there's no free lunch, Doug, oh, we'll have to pay for that lunch sometime in the future with our grandkids. No, Doug. Nobody cares, dude. Nobody cares. It's a ledger. That's all it is. It's a ledger. It means nothing. No man's coming out from behind the green curtain and saying, I want my $30 trillion back. Never is going to happen. So relax and don't worry about it. Now, do you want somebody like Andrew Yang, who unfortunately, MMT, modern monetary theory, they've got this figured out, except they don't necessarily use the word usury as much as they need to, and they seem to want to be able to separate money from labor and let some idiot like Andrew Yang just dish you out checks with no reason behind it. Remember what I said in the beginning about you having this deal where you can spend money when you need it, it'll be there? Only when there's a reason, Doug. That was part of the deal. Only when there's a reason. COVID-19 is a reason. Every month because we feel like it, that's not a good reason, Andrew Yang. That's going to separate the psychological aspect and when you work for something, it means more to you, right? So you've got to have that psychology in your money. It helps build the faith. When you go work for all day and somebody gives you money, don't you think it has value at that point? I hope you don't say, oh wow, that was worthless. Right? So, don't want to make this video too long, but there is a free lunch, Doug. It's just Be responsible with it.